He did it loud enough for strangers to hear. "Mom, can you move?" "People have planes to catch," my son said, rolling his eyes as if I were a piece of old luggage blocking the security line. He held his phone up like a mirror so I could see myself, silver hair tucked into a navy scarf, travel wallet in my hand, boarding pass glowing on my phone that I was, yes, still learning to tap just right. "This is why you shouldn't travel alone," he added, smiling at the couple behind us like we were a comedy act and he was the punchline. The couple gave that tight, polite laugh people use when they're not sure whose side to take. I felt the ambient heat of humiliation rise from my collarbone to my cheeks. I stepped forward, placed my shoes in the gray bin, and said in the calm voice that once wrangled 34th graders, "Evan, volume." He ignored me, leaning closer so his words would only be mine to swallow. "When we get to Phoenix, we're going straight to the bank. We'll add me to your accounts, get that power of attorney sorted. None of this would be a mess if you just let me handle things." There it was, the greedy motive wearing a son's face. Handle things. My pension. My house. The savings his father and I built $1 at a time. He wanted the key ring to my life and had the nerve to present it as help. He smiled for the room again, voice bright. "Everybody relax, my mom's learning to travel in the 21st century." Then, in a whisper meant to bruise, "Try not to hold up the line with your antique phone." I looked at his expensive sneakers and the designer backpack he'd borrowed for 3 months. I thought of last week's conversation at my kitchen table, him circling beneficiary, on a form like a vulture tracing a landing pattern. My stomach tightened. I took a breath and placed my phone on the belt the way the agent asked. And then the twist, sharp and clean as a bell, a uniformed security officer stepped out from the podium near the metal detector, scanned the crowd, and called my name, not his. "Mrs. Hart." His smile reached his eyes. "Welcome. I'm Officer Daniels with TSA Passenger Support. We've been expecting you. Right this way." Evan blinked. "You requested special treatment," he scoffed, just loud enough for the nearest 10 people to hear. I picked up my travel wallet. "I requested assistance," I said. "There's a difference." The officer nodded at me, then addressed Evan with polite steel. "We offer escorted screening for seniors who call ahead. Mrs. Hart is on our list." He turned back to me. "We'll take you through the passenger support lane and get you settled, ma'am." The line parted like a curtain. The couple who'd laughed a minute ago stepped back and gave me space. Another officer lifted the rope and motioned me forward. I walked with my head level and my back straight, the way my mother taught me to carry a tray of Sunday glasses. Evan stayed where he was, mouth slightly open, one sneaker angled toward the priority lane he thought would belong to him by default. "Meet you on the other side," I said. He called after me, lower now, angrier because he was smaller. "Mom, this is ridiculous." What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that security welcomed her wasn't just a lucky phrase. I had called TSA Cares 2 days ago. I had filed a travel note with my bank. I had printed and folded into my wallet a letter from my doctor explaining my hip, not because I can't walk but because sometimes a piece of paper makes men stop talking. I did all of it because the last time Evan helped, I ended up with a new authorized user I didn't ask for and a streaming service I've never watched. I had learned, when people treat you like a door, you change the locks. Officer Daniels guided me to a separate lane with a blue stanchion and a sign that said passenger support. "Take your time," he said. "No rush." He checked my ID, compared it to the boarding pass on my phone, then handed both back with a warmth that felt like an apology for the public theater I'd just endured. "We'll do shoes on," he added. "We can wand your ankle after." I nodded. "Thank you." Behind us, Evan tried to follow, adjusting his smile into something ingratiating. "She's with me," he said to the officer at the rope. "Family." The officer didn't move the rope. "Passenger support is for those who requested ahead or need accommodation, sir. You can reunite after screening." Evan's smile cracked. "She gets confused with phones," he said. "She." Officer Daniels glanced back at me, an eyebrow flicking up with a question I could answer or ignore. I answered, "I'm fine." Then to Evan, with a softness I learned from years of teaching, "I know how to unlock my own phone." He made a show of checking his watch, then settling back into the regular line, muttering something about retiree privileges to the man behind him. The man didn't answer. I stepped into the millimeter wave scanner, my arms up like in a picture of surrender, and held my breath. When the machine chirped, the agent smiled. All set. Mind if I check your ankle? She knelt, waved the wand near my orthopedic shoe, and said, You're good. She didn't rush. She didn't sigh. She didn't talk to me like I was a task on a list. I walked out with my shoes still on, my scarf still tied, my dignity intact. At the end, a woman in a blazer with an airline badge waited, carrying a small sign with my name. Mrs. Hart, she said, welcome back. We spoke on the phone. I'm Helen, Special Services. We'll escort you to the gate and board you early. I felt the old heat in my cheeks cool into something steadier. I had not asked for luxury, I had asked for respect and made the necessary phone calls to collect it. Funny how people call you helpless when you use systems they never bothered to learn exist. As we walked, I thought of the call I'd made the day before, to my bank's fraud line and to an attorney recommended by my church friend June. Elder financial abuse isn't just bruises, the attorney had said. It's pressure. It's control. It's a son deciding his mother's savings are his. If you want out, we can make a plan. I wrote her words in my small notebook under the heading, What I Will Not Accept. First time using passenger support? Helen asked, keeping pace at my side. First time needing to, I said. I'm still learning. That's our job, she said. We'll take care of you. She lowered her voice half an inch. I saw what he said at the line. I'm sorry. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We stopped at a small seating area with frosted glass and 2 blue chairs. She offered me water and a moment to breathe. Through the glass, I could see Evan shoehorned into the regular line, shoulders tight, face cartoon calm in the way people look when they're close to losing it. Justice wasn't always a gavel. Sometimes it was 3 velvet ropes and a man learning boundaries by bumping into them. Where are you headed today? Helen asked. Phoenix, I said. A family visit. And a bank visit. I smiled at my own joke and felt the strength in my jaw. At the gate, she introduced me to the agent and whispered something. I didn't need to hear it. The agent smiled at me like she smiles at paying honors. We'll pre-board you, Mrs. Hart, she said. And we'll keep an eye out for your companion. Not my companion, I said, before I could catch the edge in my voice. My son. He's on the same flight. Understood. The agent's voice lost the pity and kept the respect. We'll seat you first. Evan arrived 5 minutes later, winded in spirit if not in body. He looked from me to the agent to the little sign that said pre-board, families with small children, those needing extra time. You don't need extra time, he hissed. This is ridiculous. I need exactly the time I need, I said. And I'll take it. He leaned in, practiced charm clicking on like a light. Mom, he said in a whisper, the bank forms will be faster if I take care of them. We can meet the wealth manager tomorrow. He said they can put everything under one umbrella, clean, simple. I'll be the contact so you don't have to deal with calls. This is not a storm, I said. I don't need an umbrella. Don't be stubborn, he snapped, then smoothed his voice again when he saw the agent watching. Please. It'll give us peace of mind. Us. There it was again, the plural that removed me from my own life. I thought of the envelope on my kitchen counter last week, the one he had slipped under my mug like a coaster, estate consolidation, highlighted in yellow, sticky notes on the signature lines with arrows. I thought of the way he held my car keys when he visited, tossing them in the air absent-mindedly like they were his. I thought of the neighbor, Mrs. Harris, repeating his line to me over the fence. Evan says you worry too much, dear. Let him help. And I thought of Frank, gone 8 years, who made me memorize where every valve is in the house and how to shut off the water if something leaks. Know your own home, he had said, handing me the blue binder he made. Know your own life. The agent lifted the mic and called pre-board. Mrs. Hart, she smiled, whenever you're ready. I stood and felt Evan's fingers press lightly around my elbow, a pressure disguised as care. I stepped away, easy and firm. He exhaled through his nose, the way he did as a boy when I wouldn't let him quit piano. Why are you making this hard? He asked. Because it's mine, I said. My trip. My account. My time. He looked at the floor, then up, anger masked as patience. We'll talk in Phoenix, he said. You can't keep fighting me. I'm trying to help. I know exactly what you're trying to do, I said. I walked down the jet bridge with Officer Daniels behind us for a few steps, making sure my bag didn't catch on the gray carpet ridges. The plane door was still open, the cabin crew smiling in that trained way that is half theater, half kindness. Welcome aboard, Mrs. Hart, one said, glancing at my pre-board note. We've got you in 3A. Plenty of room. I settled into my seat and placed my small notebook in the seat pocket. On the first page, what I will not accept. Under it, I wrote a new line, being managed by my own child. I drew a square around the words and shaded it in, like we used to do with spelling words to make sure they stuck. Evan came down the aisle 5 minutes later, sunglasses on his head like a crown. He stopped at row 3, took in the window seat, the extra space, and the flight attendant offering me a cup of water before takeoff. He forced a smile that showed too many teeth. Nice, he said. You went all out. I used miles, I said. Your father's, left to me when he died. He wanted me comfortable when I travel. I didn't add the rest, that there were more miles in the account than he realized, and more boundaries in me than he'd planned for. He leaned in so only I could hear. After we land, we Uber straight to the bank. Don't make a scene there. Just sign where I tell you. The manager is expecting us. Cancel it, I said. We're not going. His jaw ticked. Don't be dramatic. I'm being direct, I said. There's a difference. He stood there a second too long, blocking the aisle until a businessman behind him cleared his throat. Excuse me, the man said, neutrally. Evan shifted, moved to his seat, and I turned to the window. The ground crew in their neon vests moved like choreography. I thought of how every piece of a departure has a job, a checklist, a confirmation. I had started writing my own. As the plane pushed back, my phone buzzed with one last message before airplane mode from a number I had saved the night before as Rachel, attorney, confirmed for Tuesday, 10 a.m. Bring your binder. We'll discuss steps to protect your assets and set firm boundaries. You're not alone. I turned my phone off and folded my hands. Security had welcomed me. The airline had respected me. My son had mocked me. He thought he owned the next scene. He was wrong. Keep watching, because when we landed, I changed the destination, and the first place I led him wasn't the bank he picked. It was the room where masks come off and signatures get compared in front of people who know the law. When the wheels touched down in Phoenix, the pilot announced the usual welcome, and everyone surged forward to grab their bags. I stayed seated until the aisle cleared. Evan drummed his fingers on the armrest, clearly annoyed. Come on, he said. We need to get moving. I looked at him evenly. We're not rushing anywhere. He forced a smile as if the whole plane were still watching. Mom, please. We walked out together, though I kept my stride steady, not matching his. By the time we reached baggage claim, he'd already ordered the Uber. Driver's outside, he said. We'll drop the bags at your sister's and head straight to the bank. I let the words hang. But that wasn't the end of it. At my sister Ellen's house that evening, over her roast chicken and potatoes, Evan turned the conversation to money as if it were casual. Aunt Ellen, don't you think Mom should let me handle things? She gets calls from the bank she doesn't even understand. Scams everywhere. I could save her so much trouble. Ellen paused, fork midair. She looked at me. Is that true? No, I said. Evan laughed as though I'd told a joke. Mom, last week you thought the cable bill was fraud. It wasn't. You just forgot. Heat climbed into my cheeks. Ellen frowned, unsure who to believe. Ruth, maybe it wouldn't hurt to have some help. Help. That word again. I gripped my glass of water. Ellen, I pay my bills on time. I know what's mine. What I don't know is why Evan thinks everything I own should be under his name. Evan shook his head, still smiling like a salesman. You're being dramatic. It's not about me. It's about keeping things simple. He had turned dinner into a stage, and I was the confused old mother who couldn't keep up. The next morning, while Ellen went to the market, I found Evan at her kitchen table with his laptop open. He didn't hide it. A bank website glowed on the screen. My name. My account. How did you? I logged in for you, he said smoothly. You left your passwords written down in your binder. That's not safe, Mom. Anyone could get in. I moved some money into a holding account. Don't worry, it's still yours. Still mine. My voice cracked sharp. Yes, he said, as though soothing a child. But with me as custodian. Cleaner. Safer. My throat tightened. Put it back. He leaned back in Ellen's chair, folding his arms. Or what? You'll complain to the bank? You'll look confused and they'll agree with me. I'm your son, Mom. They'll believe me before they believe you. The humiliation burned deeper than anything in the airport line. Not just public mockery, but private theft dressed up as protection. I left the room without answering. In Ellen's guest room, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my binder. Every password, every account number, every insurance policy Frank and I kept, written in careful blue ink. He had found the key to everything because I trusted him to stay out. Foolish. Tears came hot, but behind them was something harder. By the time we returned home, the gossip had already started. Mrs. Harris, watering her roses, called over the fence. Evan says you're thinking of letting him handle the bills. That's good, Ruth. Less stress for you. I smiled politely. Inside, my stomach knotted. He had been planting seeds in every ear, painting me as helpless, confused, in need of his guiding hand. And then came Sunday dinner at church. After service, at the potluck, Evan worked the room like a politician. Mom's been under a lot of pressure, I heard him say to Pastor Green. I'm stepping in to help her sort things out. Pastor Green looked at me with that pastoral pity reserved for the frail. That's a blessing, he said. Not everyone has children willing to take that role. The role of thief, I thought. But the whispers built. By the end of the meal, I felt eyes on me, soft, sympathetic, questioning. As though I had already lost something I hadn't signed away. That night, I sat at my kitchen table under the glow of the old brass lamp and called the number June from choir had pressed into my hand. Rachel Myers, elder law attorney, came the voice on the other end. Steady. Professional. This is Ruth Hart, I said, my voice low though no one else was in the house. I think my son is trying to take control of my accounts. Rachel asked careful questions, not one wasted word. Passwords? Access? Have you signed anything? No. Good, she said. Then nothing is final. First step, change those passwords. Second, lock your credit. Third, document everything. Don't confront him yet. Let him show his hand. Her words felt like a lifeline. I scribbled them in my notebook. Change passwords. Lock credit. Document. The next day, I went to the bank by myself. The clerk, a young woman with kind eyes, guided me through changing every code, every access point. Do not share these again, she said. Not even with family. I nodded. When Evan found out, oh, he found out fast. That evening he stormed into my kitchen, slamming his palm against the table. Why can't I log in? Why did you change everything? Because it's mine, I said quietly. You don't trust me? No. The word hit the air like glass shattering. His face twisted, the charm stripped away. You'll regret this, he spat. Maybe. But not as much as I'd regret giving him everything Frank and I built. The humiliation had reached its peak, mocked in public, doubted in private, whispered about in church, betrayed at my own kitchen table. But now I had allies, Rachel with her clear instructions, June with her gentle nudge, the young bank clerk with her firm reminder. I wasn't alone. That night, I sat at the table with my binder open and wrote in block letters across a fresh page. I will not be managed. I will fight. And for the first time since the airport line, I felt my spine straighten with something like defiance. Because Evan thought this was the end of my independence. But really, it was the beginning of my counterattack. Keep watching, because next, I started building a strategy that would turn his every move against him. Rachel's words echoed in my head for days. Document everything. Don't confront him yet. Let him show his hand. So I did what I had done all my life as a teacher. I turned chaos into records. My binder, once just a safe for bills and passwords, became a weapon. I added tabs, bank calls, emails, neighbors' comments, church gossip, Evan's threats. Every word he said to me, every time he raised his voice, I logged it in blue ink. Dates. Times. My handwriting steady even when my hands shook. Carol, my friend from choir, came by with her old tape recorder. Use this, she said. Hide it in your purse. Just press record before he starts talking. I don't want to trick him, I said. Carol shrugged. You're not tricking. You're protecting. He's already recording you, every insult, every humiliation, in people's memories. At least your version will be the truth. So I kept it in the side pocket of my purse, and when Evan came around, I pressed record. The first tape filled fast. Why won't you just sign it? Evan snapped one evening, waving a power of attorney form in front of me at the kitchen table. It's one piece of paper. One. I can take care of everything. You won't have to worry. I'm not signing, I said. He slammed the pen down. You don't know what you're doing. I could save you fees, save you hassle, save you embarrassment. I'm not embarrassed, I said softly. Oh really? Then why did Mrs. Harris tell me you got lost trying to pay the water bill online? Everyone knows, Mom. You're slipping. Do you want the whole neighborhood to watch you crumble? I pressed the record button under the table. His voice seared onto the tape, not just my memory. Rachel listened to the recording in her office, her lips pressed thin. This is gold, she said. Coercion. Pressure. We'll build a case. Keep recording. What if he finds out? I asked. Then he'll learn what you've learned, she said calmly. That you're not afraid anymore. But Evan grew bolder. He stopped pretending to be gentle. One afternoon, Ellen called me, her voice trembling. Ruth, did you really agree to sell the house? Evan said you two already talked about it. He told me you're moving into assisted living. My knees nearly gave way. What? No. Absolutely not. Well, he said he had your permission. I hung up and drove straight to Rachel's office. She pulled up county property records online. My heart dropped. There it was, a preliminary listing filed by Evan with my name forged as seller's consent. My home. The house Frank and I paid off. He was trying to sell it from under me. This is fraud, Rachel said, her voice sharp now. Not just manipulation. This is criminal. I sat there stunned, staring at the screen. The betrayal was no longer whispers and forms, it was an open attempt to erase my life. That night, I walked through my house slowly. I touched the frame of Frank's photo, the piano keys, the worn quilt on the couch. Every corner held decades of us. And my son had filed a paper that said none of it was mine. I opened my binder and added a new tab, House Fraud. I slipped a printout of the online record inside. My pen scratched one line across the page. He crossed the line. Rachel met me at the courthouse the next morning. We'll put a freeze on the property, she said. He won't be able to sell without your in-person signature. And once we gather enough evidence, we'll take him to court. I hesitated, the old ache of a mother's love rising. He's still my son. Rachel looked me in the eye. And you're still his mother. Which makes this worse. But love doesn't excuse theft. It makes it more dangerous. Meanwhile, Evan thought he was winning. He strutted around church, shaking hands, dropping hints that Mom's moving to a community soon. He told neighbors I was tired, frail, ready to hand over the reins. He laughed when Mrs. Harris repeated his words back to me, as if humiliation were a game we played. But every word he said found its way into my binder. Every whisper became fuel. The revelation came 2 weeks later. Rachel called me to her office, eyes gleaming with that mix of satisfaction and fury only lawyers carry. She handed me a folder. We subpoenaed the notary record from that supposed property agreement, she said. Guess what? The notary listed has been dead for 7 years. I flipped the pages. My signature, scrawled on a deed transfer. Beside it, the name of a notary who hadn't breathed in nearly a decade. He didn't even bother to find a real witness, Rachel said. He thought you'd roll over. He thought you'd never fight. I stared at the forged line, at the lies laid bare. For the first time, the weight lifted. Not because the fight was over, but because I had proof that would burn him where he thought he was untouchable. My son mocked me at the airport. He humiliated me in front of neighbors. He tried to steal my home. But now, I had the weapon he never saw coming, the truth, written in his own forged hand. And I was ready to use it. Keep watching, because the next time we were in the same room, the world would see who he really was. The courtroom was colder than I expected, though maybe that was nerves chilling my bones. I sat at the petitioner's table, my binder on my lap like a shield, Rachel beside me in her crisp navy blazer. Across the aisle sat Evan, expensive suit pressed, hair slicked back, charm plastered on his face like a second skin. He looked more like a businessman than a son. Case of Ruth Hart versus Evan Hart, the clerk called. Allegations of elder financial abuse, fraud, and attempted unlawful transfer of property. The words rang like a bell in my ears, my son's name, paired with abuse. The judge nodded. Proceed. Rachel rose smoothly. Your Honor, this case is simple. A son mocked his mother publicly, pressured her privately, and attempted to strip her of her financial independence. We will present forged documents, false statements, and testimony to show his intent, to take her assets without her consent. Evan's lawyer, a sleek man with wire-rimmed glasses, smirked. Your Honor, what we have here is not abuse. It's a son caring for his elderly mother, trying to help her manage her affairs responsibly. She is confused, and her accusations are unfounded. Confused. That word. It struck like a slap. Rachel didn't flinch. We'll let the evidence speak. First, Rachel displayed the power of attorney form Evan had shoved at me in my kitchen. She tapped the recording device on the table. We have audio of him coercing her to sign, threatening embarrassment if she refused. The judge gestured. Play it. Evan's voice filled the courtroom, sharp and clear. Everyone knows, Mom. You're slipping. Do you want the whole neighborhood to watch you crumble? Gasps rippled through the benches. Mrs. Harris was there, clutching her purse. Ellen sat rigid, eyes wet. The judge's eyes narrowed. Rachel continued. This is not care. This is pressure. Next came the property record. Rachel pulled a printout from her folder. Your Honor, here is a deed transfer Evan filed, attempting to sell his mother's home. Her signature was forged. The notary listed has been deceased since 2015. She placed the paper on the evidence stand. The judge studied it, then looked at Evan. Is this true? Evan's lawyer stood quickly. Clerical mistake. Rachel cut him off. We verified through state notary records. The man was dead for 7 years when this document was stamped. Clerical mistake, or intentional fraud. The room buzzed. I could feel the air shift, sympathy moving like a tide. Finally, Rachel pulled up the photo Mrs. Harris had printed from her phone, a candid shot at church where Evan bragged, I'm stepping in to handle Mom's affairs. She's not capable anymore. Character evidence, Your Honor, Rachel said. He wasn't protecting her. He was building a false narrative to take her independence. The judge leaned back, steepling his fingers. Mr. Hart, what do you have to say? Evan stood, his face still polished but his voice cracking at the edges. I was trying to help. She forgets things. She gets confused. I was only trying to make sure she didn't lose everything to scams. I rose then, my binder tight in my hands. May I speak, Your Honor? The judge nodded. I turned to Evan. You mocked me in front of strangers at the airport. You whispered behind my back to neighbors. You told the church I was slipping. And then you tried to take the house your father and I built brick by brick. That isn't help, Evan. That's theft dressed in love. His face flushed crimson. You don't understand, Mom. Without me, you'll fall apart. I straightened my shoulders. Without you, I stood taller than I ever have. The courtroom went still. Rachel laid her final piece, a statement from my bank clerk, detailing how Evan attempted to access my accounts without authorization. He exploited knowledge of his mother's passwords. This is elder financial abuse, plain and simple. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Hart, you are accused of coercion, forgery, and unauthorized access. Do you deny this? Evan sputtered. His lawyer whispered furiously, but it was too late. The walls he'd built around his story were crumbling. I watched him fold into himself, the polished suit no longer armor but costume. The judge's gavel struck once. This matter will proceed to full trial with charges considered. Until then, Mr. Hart is prohibited from accessing any of Mrs. Hart's financial accounts or property. Custodial control remains with Mrs. Hart alone. The relief hit like cool water. My name, my house, my life, protected. But as the bailiff called for order, Evan leaned toward me across the aisle, eyes blazing. His voice was low but poisonous. You think this is over? You just embarrassed me in front of everyone. You'll pay for this. I met his gaze steadily. Not anymore. The confrontation was over. The lies were exposed. The witnesses saw everything. But his threat lingered like smoke. And I knew, the final act was still to come. Keep watching, because in the end, it wasn't just my freedom on the line. It was his downfall. The storm finally broke 2 months later. The trial was quick, the evidence overwhelming. The forged signature with a dead notary, the recordings of his threats, the attempted bank transfers, all stacked against Evan like bricks in a wall he had built himself. The judge ruled decisively. Evan was guilty of elder financial abuse, forgery, and attempted fraud. He was sentenced to probation, community service, and heavy restitution. His professional license, something he valued more than me, was suspended pending review. But the real punishment wasn't written on paper. It was the silence in the church pews when he walked in. It was the neighbors who turned their backs. It was Ellen, my sister, who said quietly, "You are not welcome in this house until you repent." For a man who thrived on image, humiliation was the sharpest blade. For me, freedom came in smaller, softer ways. The phone stopped ringing with false bank calls. The mailbox no longer spat threats. My binder, once heavy with fear, now closed with certainty. My name and property were secure. Rachel shook my hand after the final hearing. "You won," she said. "Not just your case. Your voice." At home, I sat at the kitchen table under the brass lamp. For weeks, I had walked past Frank's picture, too ashamed to meet his eyes. That night, I looked straight at him and whispered, "I didn't let him take what we built." The house was still mine. The savings still mine. My dignity, untouched. Evan tried calling once after the ruling. His voice, small on the voicemail, said, "Mom, I was just trying to help. I didn't mean." I deleted it before he finished. Because love doesn't excuse theft. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. And help that comes with strings isn't help, it's a noose. Weeks later at church, Pastor Green asked me to share a reflection during testimony. I stood slowly, binder in hand, and said, "Sometimes betrayal doesn't come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the very hands you once held to cross the street. But God gives us strength, and truth gives us power. I may be 78, but I am not helpless. I am not weak. And I will not be managed by anyone but myself." Applause rose like a wave, not pity but respect. For the first time in months, I felt whole again. Now when I walk through the airport, I carry myself taller. I still use passenger support, but not because I am frail. Because I know my worth, and I will not be mocked for claiming it. Security welcomed me that day, and in a way it reminded me, I can always walk in the lane reserved for those who refuse to be pushed aside. And so, my story closes not with defeat, but with defiance. Because betrayal may sting, but it cannot silence. It may wound, but it cannot erase. And when family turns greedy, you learn the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the people you raised must be held accountable, just like strangers. Backhand index pointing right. Tell me, if your own child tried to strip away your dignity and call it help, would you stay quiet, or would you fight to take your life back?